3 Australian women with links to the Islamic State IS group have been formally charged after returning home from Syria. Kausa Abbas, 53, and her daughter Zainab Ahmed, 31, will appear at Melbourne Magistrates Court on Friday, less than 24 hours after they were arrested at Melbourne Airport.
And investors could not get enough of Ramp throughout 2025, and it looks like 2026 could be another banner year of fundraising for the corporate spend management startup. The company is in talks to raise another $750 million at a pre-money valuation of more than $40 billion, sources tell the Wall Street Journal. The deal is not yet final, though, so terms could change. Ramp declined to comment.
Real Madrid's simmering tensions have spilled over, with Federico Valverde and Frenchman Aurelien Tchouameni involved in a dressing room fight, which resulted in the Uruguayan being taken to hospital with a cut head, several club sources have said. Real later confirmed that team captain Valverde, who was subsequently discharged, sustained a head injury and will be sidelined for up to 2 weeks.
And Barcelona and Real Madrid will contest the 264th El Clasico when the Spanish giants come together in a La Liga clash on Sunday. Rarely will there have been a more highly charged atmosphere, with a heavily demoralised Real arriving in the Catalan capital, facing the prospect of watching their fiercest rivals crowned champions on the day.
OpenAI said Thursday that its API will now include a number of new voice intelligence features designed to help developers create apps that can talk, transcribe, and translate conversations with users. The company's new GPT Real-Time 2 is another voice model built to create a realistic vocal simulation that can converse with users. However, unlike its predecessor, GPT Real-Time 1, this one is built with GPT-5 class reasoning that OpenAI says was created to deal with more complicated requests from users.
The Iranian military has said it retaliated against United States Navy ships after US forces targeted an oil tanker in Iran's territorial waters, a major escalation that puts further strain on the fragile truce between Washington and Tehran. Iran's Khatam al-Anbiya central headquarters added on Thursday that the US also violated the ceasefire by carrying out airstrikes on civilian areas, including Keshem Island, in cooperation with some regional countries, without identifying them.
Tennessee's Republican-dominated state legislature and governor have approved a new congressional map ahead of the U.S. midterms, carving up the state's only black majority district. The approval on Thursday culminated the latest push in states across the country to redistrict ahead of the U.S. midterms in November, which will determine which party controls the U.S. House of Representatives and Senate.
The United States Trade Court has ruled against President Donald Trump's latest 10% global tariffs, finding that across-the-board tariffs were not justified under a 1970s trade law. The U.S. Court of International Trade ruled on Thursday in favour of small businesses that challenged the tariffs, which took effect on February 24. The ruling was 2-1, with one judge saying it was premature to grant victory to the small business plaintiffs.
And Disney senior executives could potentially combine Disney Plus with other apps like Disneyland Resort and Disney Cruise Line Navigator to make one unified app, according to a report from Bloomberg. Sources said these discussions were at an early stage, but that they are referring to this as a super app internally. And Kodiak AI stock tumbled 37% in after hours, trading Thursday after the self-driving truck startup disclosed it raised $100 million by selling shares at a steep discount, a sign that investors were willing to back the company, but not at its current market price. And the company sold shares at $6.50 each, well below its closing price of $9.10, according to a filing with the Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC). And the raise also included warrants, instruments that give investors the right to buy additional shares, later a set price, in this case as low as $6.
The United States has imposed a host of new sanctions related to Cuba amid a months-long pressure campaign against the island nation. The sanctions on Thursday were announced hours after United Nations experts decried Washington's effective fuel blockade of the island as tantamount to energy starvation.
Warning. This story contains descriptions of sexual assault that some readers may find disturbing. Palestinians who were detained in Israeli prisons have revealed how they suffered dehumanizing treatment by guards and soldiers, including torture and sexual violence.
Dozens of people have been killed in attacks reportedly carried out by al-Qaeda-affiliated fighters in central Mali, the deadliest assault since armed groups launched a widespread coordinated assault late last month. According to local security and administrative sources speaking to the AFP news agency on Thursday, attacks on the villages of Korikori and Gomosagu in the Mopti region killed at least 30 people a day earlier. Three sources, including an aid worker, a diplomat and a security source, separately told the news agency Reuters that the assailants had hit two unnamed localities in Mopti, killing at least 50 on Wednesday. Democrats in the United States Senate have raised questions about the US military's potential role in establishing vast evacuation zones in Lebanon, Gaza and Iran in a letter addressed to Brad Cooper, head of the US military's Central Command, CENTCOM. 12 legislators said mass displacement orders likely contravene international laws the United States has helped develop around humane warfare.
And United States President Donald Trump said he is giving the European Union until July 4th to comply with the proposed trade deal, or the US would increase tariffs on the bloc. Trump's announcement on Thursday follows what he referred to as a great call with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. And the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA, said Tuesday that the later released 2026 Tesla Model Y is the first vehicle to meet the agency's new benchmark for advanced driver assistance systems. 4 pass-fail tests were added to the agency's safety ratings program, assessing a car's automatic emergency braking for pedestrians, blind spot warning, blind spot intervention, and lane assist, a feature that helps keep the vehicle in the lane.
On Thursday, OpenAI announced a new feature called Trusted Contact, designed to alert a trusted third party if mentions of self-harm are expressed within a conversation. The feature allows an adult ChatGPT user to designate another person as a trusted contact within their account, such as a friend or family member. In cases where a conversation may turn to self-harm, OpenAI will now encourage the user to reach out to that contact. It also sends an automated alert to the contact, encouraging them to check in with the user. OpenAI has faced a wave of lawsuits from the families of people who have committed suicide after talking with its chatbot. In a number of cases, the families say ChatGPT encouraged their loved one to kill themselves or even helped them plan it out.
And while AI disruption looms over many legacy SaaS companies, several HR tech startups seem to be thriving. One of these companies is small business payroll provider Gusto. The 14-year-old company, last valued at over $9 billion, and just announced that it surpassed $1 billion in revenue earlier this year. And unlike many startups that report annualized recurring revenue, an estimate of the value of their contracts in the upcoming 12 months, Gusto's figure represents actual revenue earned over the previous 12 months. And on Tuesday, education tech giant Instructure disclosed a data breach where hackers stole students' private information, including their names, personal email addresses, and messages sent between teachers and students. Now it appears hackers were able to compromise Instructure again, this time defacing several schools' login pages to the company's platform Canvas, which allows schools to manage coursework and assignments and communicate with students.
Swedish startup Pitt may have gained notice for some rage-bait social media posts, but it has also become another Stockholm AI startup to watch. pit is led by the co-founders of European scooter giant Voi, including Voi CEO Fredrik Hjelm. He is joined by former iZettle and Klarna engineers, and it is now backed by a 16Z, which is leading the startup's $16 million seed round. Stockholm, also home to Lovable, is one of the places where A16Z has been actively looking for the next European unicorn.
China is emerging as a major player in global diplomacy, including in the Middle East. In 2023, it helped re-establish diplomatic ties between Riyadh and Tehran. Gulf states are pushing a United Nations Security Council resolution that threatens Iran with sanctions and other measures if it does not halt attacks on ships in the Strait of Hormuz, stop imposing illegal tolls, and disclose the location of all mines to allow freedom of navigation. Speaking at the UN on Thursday, top diplomats from Qatar, Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates (UAE) stressed the importance of resuming pre-war traffic levels in the narrow waterway through which about a fifth of global energy exports pass in peacetime.
Piracy is rising again near Somalia. Since April 20, at least 3 ships have been hijacked off Somali waters and one near the Yemeni coast. A sailor's voice note from a seized vessel has spread online as the Iran war shakes the region. Is it fueling attacks on key shipping routes? In this episode,
And Elon Musk's legal effort to dismantle OpenAI may hinge on how its for-profit subsidiary enhances or detracts from the Frontier Lab's founding mission of ensuring that humanity benefits from artificial general intelligence. On Thursday, a federal court in Oakland, California, heard a former employee and board member say the company's efforts to push AI products into the marketplace compromised its commitment to AI safety.
Perplexity's personal computer, its answer to OpenClaw and other local AI agents, is now available to all Mac users via its desktop app, the company announced on Thursday. As a reminder, Personal Computer is an expansion on Perplexity's general-purpose, multi-model digital worker dubbed, confusingly, Perplexity Computer. Personal Computer, meanwhile, is designed to bring those capabilities to your own device. It does so by allowing AI agents access to local files, applications, and connectors, as well as the web, in order to handle the individual user's personal multi-step workflows.
Germany's finance minister has blamed Donald Trump's irresponsible war in Iran for a big drop in his country's expected tax revenues. Lars Klingbeil said the US president's actions in the region had caused a global energy shock.
The United States Treasury Department has sanctioned Iraq's Deputy Minister of Oil, Ali Marij al-Bahadli, for allegedly helping Iran to sell its oil. The Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control, OFAC, said it was taking action to increase economic pressure on Iran as negotiations for a deal between Washington and Tehran are showing timid signs of progress, with Iranian officials saying they are reviewing a U.S. proposal. Mohammed Soliman, accused of attacking demonstrators who had gathered in support of Israeli captives held in Gaza in Colorado, has pleaded guilty to murder charges. The plea on Thursday was accompanied by renewed calls for the administration of U.S. President Donald Trump to cease efforts to deport Soliman's family, who authorities have said had no prior knowledge of the attack that they have roundly condemned.
And Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has met US President Donald Trump at the White House for talks that were expected to focus on trade, security and critical minerals as Lula seeks to reset their rocky relationship. Thursday's meeting between Lula and Trump brought together 2 of the world's most prominent populist figures despite their sharp ideological differences.
Beirut, Lebanon. Israel's attacks on Lebanon and pressure on the Lebanese government to disarm the pro-Iran Shia movement Hezbollah by force are stoking internal tensions, analysts have told Al Jazeera. Israel is leaning on this division as a strategy to try to pit communities against one another, they say. The strategy is working, they add, pointing to a recent series of sectarian and political provocations.